It was fantastic to have Larry and Paul as guests on this episode of Light on Leeds. They've been making radio listeners laugh for years with their popular cider show on BBC Radio Leeds. It was great to chat with them about how they met each other and their newly launched production company, Northern Imposter. So on this week's episode of Light on Leeds podcast, we've got Larry and Paul. Hello.
Good morning.
Hi.
Good evening.
And
Good afternoon.
Thank you very much for coming along.
Pleasure.
So can I ask you, what is it you both do in Leeds?
Well, we're radio presenters, primarily. We have been for the last 10 years.
Yeah.
And they're firstly on Radio Air, which is where we got together as a professional couple. And a personal couple as well.
Yeah. A loving couple.
Yeah, and then we moved to BBC Radio Leeds in 2012, I think it was.
Just in time for the Olympics, yeah.
Yeah, when the world was great. Do you remember 2012?
I remember that time,
Yeah,
that was
nice.
a long time ago now.
And then in the last few years, we've been writing and producing comedy sketches. Mainly for online, and we've done some stuff for BBC Comedy, and we've done stuff that's been on 5 Live and that kind of thing, and Pick of the Week. So we've sort of built the comedy thing up in the last few years, and then that's the thing that we're mainly focused on now. We still do our radio show on Radio Leeds 12 till 2 on Saturday lunchtime.
Yeah, tick that box.
Yeah. So make sure you listen. And it's the comedy stuff that we're really focused on at the moment. Yeah.
And is that what you started on? Is that how you both started out? You wanted to get into comedy, or was it meeting each other and making each other laugh that sort of led to that?
Well, I trained as an actor in Bretton Hall, which
Darling.
which was outside of Wakefield. It's closed down now. But my aim was to be an actor. But when I moved to Leeds after Wakefield, in order to save money to move to London, that was the plan.
Right.
I sort of fell into radio, and that's where we met.
Yeah.
In a newsroom over our mutual hatred of a particular article in the Leeds Guide.
Right.
And we got on so well, we thought, let's go into a studio and have a mess around and sort of see what happens. And so, yeah, from that we started a podcast all about films. In 2008 it was the first one, called the Big Screen Podcast, and that was all before podcasts were cool.
Right.
When they were just listened to by nerds and geeks. And now no one's heard of podcasts. And then we got our first radio show in 2010. Yeah. And then...
Yeah. But it was always, I think comedy was always the thing that bound us, because we got on so well because our senses of humours, whatever the plural of that is.
Senses of humour, I think.
Senses of humours.
Yeah.
Were almost exactly aligned. So everything that I'd loved in radio comedy, like On the Hour and Blue Jam, Paul loved as well, and we both loved The Day Today and Brass Eye,
Adam and Joe
and Alan Partridge.
Yeah.
And so we were very similar in terms of our comedy. And when we were doing our film podcast, we would quite often write sketches. Although we didn't really call it that at the time.
No.
We didn't call it writing sketches, but we would do comedy skits, like Yorkshire versions of the Terminator and stuff like in like 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Sarah Connor, get out here. And that was probably the start of the comedy, and then really everything that happened was just through live radio before we decided to start actually filming stuff. And then it came about by accident a bit, didn't it? Because we started to do little videos to promote the show, really, to say, we're on air this lunchtime at 12, and then some of our videos were being watched by far more people than we would have listeners in a year.
Really?
So we were like, there's something...
Maybe we should do this as well.
Yeah.
And then the videos ended up taking up far more time than the show, but we love it. So.
And so there's some of the clips that I've seen of you on YouTube, some of the funny things that you do in the studio. So obviously Radio Leeds are supportive of you doing that.
Mainly,
yeah. Quite often, we're quite careful when we're doing the sketches where we're taking the mick out of radio. Really, we're taking the mick out of ourselves.
Yeah.
Because we are massive failures.
Yeah.
In our radio career.
Really? I wouldn't say that.
In the sense that if you look at the rise of other radio professionals, we've never been on that journey.
Our journey sort of stalled a bit, so we sort of take the mick out of that, because we've been at BBC Leeds now for like a long time, which is lovely. Obviously, that's a wonderful thing. But when you're there for 7 years, you sort of start to wonder: am I going to be here at 60?
Yeah,
doing Saturday lunchtime,
which would be fine, but it's more that when you go to other radio stations or in the BBC and say, hey, we've been doing this, do you think we could? And they're like, nah. Stay in your lane, boys. So it's so we're taking the mick out of ourselves, so pretty much people are fine with that. And the radio industry is quite ridiculous on the inside in lots of ways. It's quite ridiculous. So there's lots of comedy to be mined.
Right, okay.
Ridiculous in sort of a good way, in a negative way for some people as well, but anyway.
Do you get quite a lot of listeners from Leeds, like ringing in and joining in with your humour and everything that you're getting up to?
Thankfully, yes, because it would be awful if we did our show and no one texted in or contributed, because then we'd just be out on our own. But no, we have a sort of a band of loyal listeners, friends of the show we call them, who text in or call in every week. Which is nice. So people seem to get us, which is a nice thing.
Yeah, and we've always tried to create. There's different sort of types of radio, I suppose, but we've always tried to create this appointment to listen, join our club thing, which is sometimes hard because you do have program controllers and the like who might say, "Be careful that you're not being too in or exclusive."
Right.
So we're hoping that people are welcome into the club. But they do jump on board, don't they? And they sort of get our humour and then join in with our humour. Because it is a bit farcical quite often, our humour, isn't it?
Yeah, stupid.
Because I used to enjoy the Adam and Joe show very much.
Yeah.
Adam Buxton's probably one of my favourite podcasters. And I used to love that they had Black Watch when you were listening to them on Six Music.
Yeah.
So if you listened to them live, you were in Black Watch. But
Yeah.
if you listened to them recorded, you were not quite in the same elitist group.
I noticed earlier you said Ramble Chat, and I was about to call you up on that to ask if it was Adam Buxton.
Should we all sing the jingle?
Yeah, Ramble Chat.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think of him as my podfather. And so you did mention to me earlier that you've got some other things in the pipeline for the future. So you were talking about a production company. That sounds really exciting.
Yeah, we decided to become legitimate in a way rather than just two guys making some videos. So we formed a production company recently called Northern Imposters Productions, and that's a way for us to, because there's lots of our friends who are very good at comedy, and we want to sort of a way to bring them in and work with them officially and seem legitimate. So we formed a company. So we're both directors of a company.
Wow.
Which is,
imagine such a thing.
Yeah,
it's dead easy to do as well.
That's something I do one every week.
I was thinking of setting up the Leeds Directors Club. I think it probably already exists, but I assume we can just go along to that now.
Smoke cigars
and drink directors bitter.
Yeah. Sounds wonderful.
But yeah, so as Paul was saying, the idea is, you've got Channel 4 moved to Leeds, and they've properly committed, and they've sent money up here, and there's commissioners come up here, and they're looking. So why not put yourself in the place where they're looking?
Yeah, perfect.
And be almost a bit of a conduit. I mean, it's not like we're saying, we know everything there is to know about Northern comedy, so come through us if you want to be a success.
Yeah.
That's not why we're doing it. We just want to be really, really collaborative with people and say, we've made comedy. This is the sort of comedy we make. What's the sort of comedy you make? Shall we all make it together? And people like Channel 4 and BBC Comedy are looking for comedy with a slightly different voice. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
Or they'll say, a voice from the nations and regions, or a northern voice, and we've been here for so long that we sort of know what that is, I think.
So what kind of stuff do you think you're going to be making? Or does it depend on sort of who comes along and what ideas are thrown around?
It all depends. We'll carry on making our stuff. Whether it gets made or not is by the by. But the commissioning process we found out works in that a broadcaster goes, we're looking for stuff like this, and then production companies go and pitch for it.
Yeah.
So I imagine that's the way it works. I mean, we're still feeling our way around. We are still just two guys making some sexy vids. We're not a production company, but we're learning.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Just start somewhere.
And what we'd love to do is that there's a duo in America called Key and Peele, Jordan Peele, who's the director of a film called Get Out, people might know, and Keegan-Michael Key, who's a great comedy actor as well. And they're a comedy duo, and they do... I've forgotten what the name of their show is, actually. Is it just called Key and Peele? And it's on Comedy Central anyway. If you look at some of their sketches online, I mean, they're just stunning. The effort and the money and everything that's gone into them. And actually, it's really hard to do that with sketch comedy because it's so expensive. Because you're not on... if you're doing a 6-part drama set in one place, you've got the same set for as long as it takes to film.
Of course.
If you're doing sketch comedy, you've probably got one place that you're using and only once, and it's for a 4 or 5 minute thing, so it's dead pricey, but they do it so well, and we'd love to some way along the line be involved with making that level of sketch comedy,
because we have a million ideas that are set in a spaceship or on a plane or that you can't do. Most of our sketches are office based, or
which is just as well
in my flat based. Yeah. Well, no, because they have to be.
I see.
But
Right.
we have a list of ideas that are not that are far too ambitious.
We've got so many on a beach in Mauritius, haven't we? There's just so many ideas.
Yeah, so many in an Aston Martin.
You've done that one.
Yeah. Almost.
Oh, that's great. So I didn't know about that comedy duo. I've heard of the film Get Out. So has he obviously been able to go on to do more things, cinematic stuff, because of the success of what he's been doing with his comedy partner?
I mean, they're both insanely talented.
Yeah.
They're not only funny, they're also clever, and I mean, they're leagues ahead. They're incredibly good. But I imagine that sort of their rise to success has been probably off the back of their comedy. I would say. I don't know much about their careers. I imagine it. I mean, they're both very able, brilliant people, so maybe that was always going to happen.
Well, they've been going a long time, haven't they? That's what we'll say. But it's like I always remember a quote from David Gray about someone saying, "Oh, you're an overnight success," and him saying, "I'm a 20-year overnight success."
Yeah.
It was attributed to David Gray. Probably other people have said it, but I think they've been going a long time, and the comedy is sort of part of their career. And Jordan Peele has been writing and directing all along the way, and Keegan-Michael Key has been acting and writing all along the way. So, as Paul said, I don't know what their journey has been really, but I think talent outs, doesn't it? And they are
excellent.
Yeah, they're unbelievably good, because their sketches they haven't just come up with a funny sketch that's as funny as everybody else's sketch, but then filmed it in a really expensive and nice way. They've come up with a sketch, the writing of which is already better than anybody else's sketch, and then they filmed it beautifully as well. That's why they're so far ahead.
One day that'll be you too.
Hopefully, that'd be lovely if it was.
It'd be amazing.
We can film they do a big zombie thing, don't they, which must have cost a fortune.
Yeah.
And I was just looking across Flats Park up here.
Perfect.
Set it in there.
The world is your location.
The beast and locals as extras.
We would love that. I'm sure you get a lot of takers. So have you both lived in Leeds all your lives?
No.
Paul hasn't. I have-ish. I was born in Huddersfield, but came here when I was quite young. Then went away to uni for a bit, but then came back, drawn back to the north. Yeah. I was listening to Lisa Holdsworth on your podcast saying that she went to London for a bit and then was like, no, back to Leeds. So
visit London.
And then Paul, you came, well, as you were saying, after Wakey.
Yeah, I was born in Peterborough and then moved to Wakefield to be at Bretton Hall, and then the next logical step was to move from Wakefield was to move to Leeds. And I haven't moved anywhere since. The plan was to move to London, to save up money to move to London, but to be honest, as time has gone on, the appeal isn't really there for London anymore, because so many of my friends have moved down, and they either live with 16 people, or they live in Croydon. It's definitely still London. It's not though, is it? It's half an hour outside of London.
That's true.
So the standard of living up here is just it's so much better. Like, I live by the river. Town is on my doorstep. It's easy to get to. It's lovely. And you've got the Yorkshire Dales on your door. That's just, it's lovely up here. I can't see myself moving anyway. I like to think it's my adopted home.
Yeah, I think quite a lot of people think that when they come to Leeds. I haven't lived here for 15 years, but it feels like my home. When you started at Radio Air, then did you know each other already, or you came across each other through your work there?
Paul was, for some strange reason, involved in the sales team.
I'll tell you why. Because I wanted to get into radio. So the way I did it was to start the audition for the street team, the promo team. So sometimes you'll go out to an event and there'll be like Radio Air or Capital or Galaxy as it was then. People in hoodies jumping around at you going, oh hey, do you want the free thing? And get to drive around in the Radio Air Hummer, as there was then. There isn't anymore. There's barely a bike there is there? Anyway, so I auditioned for that and I got in, and then I said to the lady who booked me, I want to be on the radio, so if there's any way I can be in the office I'll do whatever. And I think there were some data entry jobs coming up for something. So that's what I did. I was literally working on the street team, putting just to be in the office to be able to say to people, "Oh hi, I'd like to be on the radio." And that's where we met.
But he's being coy because he did land one of Radio Air's biggest advertising clients at the time, and he still doesn't know how.
I did actually, yeah. That was, and then they were all asking me to be on the sales team. I was like, no. But it was tempting though, because they had lovely Honda Civics and they got paid normal money. I was here like scraping a living out of being a street team, getting shifts. But yeah, no, I'm glad I didn't go into the sales route, because that would have. I worked in Currys for ages. Like, that was enough sales. That was enough soul-destroying sales.
That's why you got your grasp of basic Latin, wasn't it?
Exactly, yeah.
And then I'd been in radio news reading for a long time.
Tell them how you got into radio news reading.
Oh, okay, yeah. If we've got time for a little story.
Yeah.
So my wife, then my girlfriend, she was doing her Mrs. Larry. Yeah, she was doing her dissertation for her fine art degree. Was it fine art? I'm always a bit confused about the title of it at Leeds. And she wanted, for her final piece, she had this idea about a juxtaposition of like weird, boring, inane statistics delivered with the gravitas of important news. So it was stuff like McDonald's have announced today that there are more than 352 sesame seeds on every Big Mac bun. So it was weird stuff like that. And she was looking for a newsreader to do it. And I said I'd do it because I watched so much Brass Eye and Day to Day at the time. I basically did an impression of Chris Morris doing an impression of a newsreader.
Yeah.
And she handed her dissertation in, and her tutor said, "Well done for hiring a professional newsreader to do it," which we thought was hilarious. But it did, and then it struck me. I said, "Oh, maybe I could do this." And I went through a friend of my dad's. I got in touch with a guy at a place called Fresh Radio, which was in Skipton. It's not there anymore, sadly. I think it was the last ILR in the country. And I used to go there and learn from this guy, the news editor there at the time, James Wilson. And then I ended up getting a job in sort of really old school way of getting into journalism, because I didn't study it.
No.
I was at Fresh for about 5 years, I think.
And that's how you got into radio, so you ended up being a newsreader because you played a newsreader?
Yes, yeah.
That's amazing.
And then I actually learned to become a newsreader. Went to Radio Air as a newsreader and a reporter, and that's where we met. I was doing... Radio Air used to have its sister station, which was Magic 828, which came from the same building. Again, that's not there anymore. But
Birdie Road. The building's there.
The building's there. Magic 828 doesn't exist anymore.
No, what's it called now?
Sadly. Well, it's just the AM. Do they use it for hits radio or something like that? I'm not sure how that works now, because they're turning off some medium wave stuff, aren't they?
No, the Burley Road bungalow.
Yeah. So I did breakfast with a guy called Glenn Pinder, who's ace at Magic, and that's what I was doing when we met.
And you two had a radio show together at Radio Air as well, or?
We got given one, so we did this podcast for a long time, for 2 years, and it was amazing, because I remember we used to have what we call planning meetings, where we go out to bars.
You put those inverted commas.
Sorry, you couldn't see that if you're listening. Planning meetings, inverted commas, where we get like a notepad and a pen, and we go to Smokestack, and we go to a bar. We went to the Adelphi, I remember, when we came up with the idea for the Big Screen podcast, and we essentially have a few drinks and just write down stuff, plan of action. And the thing we decided on, we both like films, let's do a podcast about films. So we called it the Big Screen podcast, and it was so much fun because you got to skive off work for a bit, and we used to go to like the View in the Light, go to press screenings. There was no one there, so you had the cinema to yourself. We'd get
it's like 9:30 in the morning.
Yeah, in the morning. We get like
watching some horror
and a smoked salmon bagel from Bagel Nash.
Oh yeah,
and we'd sit there watching these films, and this was work, and it was amazing. And then we got invited to these events, which I don't think they do anymore, called Cinema Days. Hello.
Good morning.
Where they invite sort of regional journalists to a central place in the country. There used to be like Birmingham, or...
It wasn't as glamorous as Birmingham, it was Nuneaton.
But Birmingham was one, Nuneaton was one.
Is it Longridge outside of Birmingham?
Yeah.
I got that right?
Anyway, they hire a cinema for the weekend, Saturday, Sunday, and your day can... And they're all... Hello. And they're all... funded by the studio, so Warner Brothers or Paramount
Sony.
or Sony, and your day consists of Saturday morning, breakfast, coffee, watch a film, lunch, watch a film, coffee, watch a film, dinner, watch a film, break, watch a film for 2 days straight.
It was the Nuneaton one. We watched 21 films in 3 days.
Was it 3 days?
Yeah, 'cause it started Friday afternoon.
But it was absolutely amazing, and basically the reason behind it was cheaper to get all the journalists in one place and show them the year's slate of films. So we were watching films that didn't come out for months. Like, I remember watching The Hurt Locker probably about a year before it came out, and it was an incredible film. And it was so much fun making these podcasts, but it took so much time. A lot of time. And we were making these little comedy sketches as well. So when our editor, a guy called Anthony, was like, "Hey fellas, we've got a show for you on Sunday nights on Radio Air," we'd stopped doing the podcast. And so in January 2010 we got our first radio show on Radio Air, and it was all about local music. But we should have carried on the podcast.
We should have.
Who
knew that podcasts were going to be a thing?
Oh, it's such a shame, because it sounded like you were having the best weekends in the world.
It was wonderful. It was wonderful. But the thing is, with anything, it was taking so much time, and we weren't getting paid for it.
Yeah.
And it was encroaching on your work, your actual work. Yeah. Whereas I was, I was DJing at this point as well. So I was only working nights, and my days were all free, so it didn't really bother me too much.
We did end up being sponsored, so we never got paid, but we got sponsored for a bit, didn't we? Sort of our output got sponsored by Mojo Bar in Leeds, which was
that's great.
Brilliant, because we didn't pay for a drink in there for about a year.
It made us cool. It made us cool.
That's got to be my next trip. I've got to find somebody to
sponsor
me.
A good sponsor though, not like nappies or something. Like something good, something you want.
Yeah.
Do you need nappies?
Because I don't need nappies.
Take any sponsor you can.
Yeah. There's always that as well.
Yeah.
So we always ask our guests 3 questions. The first one being, what would you say is something that was great about Leeds?
God, everything.
I would say specifically, because I know a lot about it, the nightlife and the eating out and the drinking is excellent in Leeds. Like you're spoiled for excellent bars and excellent restaurants in such a small area. So I would say that.
I think, at the risk of sounding highbrow, the diversity of the city, and I mean, because you just made me think about it. Like, if you're not someone who can afford to eat out and drink out all the time, actually, you can be in the city centre and go to the Angel Inn and have a pint of bitter for $1.80, or whatever. And that's what I really like about Leeds. That actually your options for the type of time that you're having in Leeds, whether you're having a family thing or a romantic thing or a mate thing, there is actually something you can do.
Yeah,
pretty much.
Sounds like you just piggybacked off my idea.
I did a little bit.
You just repeated my idea.
Well, I panicked because I had to think of something quickly.
I mean, that's just my idea.
But what I mean is the nightlife.
I'll let you go first. The second question.
Okay, fine. Yeah.
Something that's not so great about Leeds.
Oh, the transport. Yeah, I'm just taking your idea. Sorry. I do think it's a bit of a, and it's only because. But I live at the top end of Chapeltown, sort of between Chapeltown and Chapel Allerton, and there are 400 million buses every hour that come down Chapeltown Road, and so I shouldn't really complain. But the point is, if I need to get to Manchester or Salford on a train or something, then actually getting to the train station in Leeds is a pain in the behind, unless you live like near Crossgate Station or Burley Station, or if you live in the city centre or something like that. So actually you've just added on sort of an hour to a journey over to Manchester, which is a bit of a pain. You can't really rely on the buses.
No, you can't.
They're really expensive. God, I mean, I used to get this is a boring story now.
2 and 6.
Save this for the memoirs. But I used to get on the bus for half fare from Crossgates into town growing up, and it was 10p. Which meant for an adult it was 20p, and that's about 4.5 miles. Now, I don't believe that inflation between 1991, 92, whatever it was, and now means it's justifiable to charge somebody £2.80 for that same journey. And I think, for some people it's not a problem, they can afford it, or some people have a car and all of that. But that's a ridiculous amount of money.
It is.
For a lot of people. And even the tickets, and as much as they say they don't first, basically have a monopoly on most of the routes around Leeds, and it's just too expensive. And there's no other option for a lot of people.
No, there isn't.
So that's the thing that Leeds needs to work. And it's been trying to work on it for about 100 years now.
Yeah, it feels like about 100 years, doesn't it?
Yeah,
And
we were supposed to have the super
trams yesterday came out. I was like, wow, we'll wait and see what happens.
Well, Boris Johnson said that he wanted there to be a tram system after all, didn't he? And then somebody pressed him on it and he said, I draw buses.
That's about probably literally what he said, yeah.
I've got something that's different to transport.
Have you?
That Leeds could do better with green spaces.
Yeah.
I live in the city centre, as I've mentioned a few times, and there's no park. There's nothing. There's a couple of trees up near a church for a bit, and I'm struggling to think of anywhere else.
Although, where you live and that south bank past where the Tetley is, that's all going to be a park, isn't it? I mean,
is it?
Yeah, there's going to be what were they calling it? The garden corridor or something?
Yeah, something like that. It's supposed to be like a big long green corridor that goes all the way from there.
Oh, well, let me rescind. Well, at the moment it doesn't do it well.
No,
at the moment there's nowhere to go. Well, hopefully that will be a good thing because it really needs it. Like I'm sure it must be something like the biggest city without any sort of park.
Yeah.
Well, it's got the little park by the church there near Merrion Street, hasn't it?
That's what I was referring to.
Yeah, it's only quite small, isn't it?
Yeah, tiny little, barely garden.
There'll be green space in Soyo when it arrives.
Soyo, it's Quarry Hill. No one's going to call it Soyo. No Leeds resident's going to go, just pop into Soyo.
I think they will.
No, they won't.
I'm going to try and get it out.
No Yorkshire person was going to say Soyo. They'll call it Quarry Hill.
I think it'll catch on.
We'll see. And what would you say, even if somebody was a long-term resident of Leeds, could you tell us about something that you think is a hidden gem that they might never have heard of?
The Leeds Library.
That's a good one.
Thank you. I was a member of that for a while and I let my membership lapse and I'm a bit sad about it now, but I should rekindle it. Leeds Library was an excellent place and it was good to go there and work, and it's beautiful. And it's hidden away, you don't expect it anywhere. And it's got first edition of Casino Royale.
That's it, I didn't know.
Yeah, and there's a massive Bond, which they got out for me as a massive Bond geek. That was a lovely experience. But yeah, the Leeds Library would be my hidden gem. And relatively speaking, membership I don't think is that expensive. I think it was like 120 quid a year, which is, I would say a lot of money. But, if you're paying for Netflix...
Yeah. Yeah, it's equivalent to that. Place. Yeah, I was very tempted because I got to go and have a look around it when they were doing the heritage tours.
Yeah.
So I got to go and have a look around it. It's amazing. Yeah, I'm very tempted to join up. And they just do such great, amazing historical talks. And they've got all sorts
events and things are excellent there as well. Alongside all the books and that, and they're lovely people. So that's my hidden gem. I think I've chosen a good one. I'm so happy I came up with that.
And now I'm trying to think. I've already mentioned the Angel Inn, obviously, and I think there's tons of stuff that I think of as sort of underground that's probably not that hidden, like places like Bundabust or
that's not underground.
But and then I half thought about the brewery tap rooms like North Brew and Nomadic and stuff like that. That's all booze.
That's all booze.
No, I tell you what I did recently for the first time, despite living in Leeds for nearly 4 decades, is we went on the Meanwood Valley Trail.
Oh yeah.
And I've been through like the urban farm quite a bit there with the kids, and there's a lovely little cafe there now, the barn. But for the first time we went to the Meanwood Valley Trail, so you park up by the park and then you just sort of get lost in the woods. That's a Frozen 2 reference for everybody. No? Anyone?
No.
Anyway, but it's amazing because it's quite difficult to find somewhere in Leeds where you can't hear traffic noise. But actually just being in there, it's proper escapism.
Yeah, it's lovely.
You're just in the middle of nowhere. There's a strange row of cottages, and you think, who lives there? That's weird. This is very niche for anybody who's been to around that part of Meanwood. So it's it's muddy as hell, but it's it was great. I really like it there, and you can walk up to that lovely pub in Meanwood, which the name of which has escaped me right now.
No, I can't think of it.
Oh, the one that's sort of the fieldy bit round it.
Yeah, the cricket pitch. The Myrtle Tavern. Well done.
Yeah, that is a nice one.
Yeah.
So good hidden gems.
Yeah.
Well, thank you both very much for coming along and speaking to us.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
Yeah.
And really good luck with the production company.
Thank you.
We'll need it.
It's called Northern Imposters.
Yeah, northernimposters.com.
Yeah. That's where you'll find us.
There.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, both. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Larry and Paul were really funny and I loved having them as guests. I'm very much looking forward to seeing what comes of their production company, Northern Imposter. Music this week is provided by Glass Rope, a band channeling their love of late 80s, early 90s classic indie pop. I absolutely adore this track that's called Bricktop.